If you're a dog trainer or dog business owner, check out my free marketing masterclass for pet pros at www.freedbytraining.com/unleash or click the link in the show notes. Welcome to Dog Training Bytes, the show where canine professionals share their key takeaways, big aha moments, and hardest lessons learned from working with dogs. I'm Mattison, certified dog trainer and behavior consultant, and dogs are my life. Every day I get to coach guardians and other trainers into a deeper understanding of canine behavior. But let's face it, sometimes dog training really bites. And that's okay, because when it does, we learn a lot. This podcast is all about sharing the lessons learned from experience, because the stories of when it got tough or when we made a mistake, that's when we learn the lessons worth learning. And it's time we share those with the world. I'll be talking to dog trainers and other pet professionals about times that working with dogs, well, bit. Not literally. Maybe literally. What's most important here on this show, what did they walk away with? What did they learn? How did it shape their approach today? Welcome to Dog Training Bytes, the show where pet professionals share personal lessons that you won't find in any textbook. Today, I get to introduce a colleague and student of mine, Kayla Koeppen, who I've worked alongside at Tulsa Pack Athletics, and I was lucky enough to have her in my behavior mentorship last year. Kayla is a trainer on the Tulsa Pack team and represents Denver, Colorado for all hybrid programs. Her training journey began with her own two dogs, Jasmine and Sully, and her love for understanding dogs and bringing harmony into homes, and has really just grown from there. Kayla is a strong advocate for the open-minded approach and loves to meet people where they are to build a more peaceful and fulfilled life with their dogs. Hey, Kayla, what's up?
Hi, how are you? I'm so happy to be here. This is pretty cool.
I'm excited because I've heard, I think, variations of the story that I think you're going to share today, just over the, I guess, years now that we've known each other.
Yeah,
But I think
yeah.
I think it starts with you telling, the wonderful dog people out there about Jasmine and Sully. I know them a little bit, but why don't you tell the world about your pack?
Yeah, absolutely. So my pack consists of, like we said, Jasmine and Sully. Jasmine is my 10-year-old boxer. She's brindle. She's definitely more senior, low key, just really wants to like either she wants you to throw her ball and she's giving you the death stare to throw the ball, or she's just asleep in your lap, like snoring. So,
Yeah.
and then we've got Sullivan, aka Sully. He's our 3-year-old American bully. And, he's a really big, blocky, like cuddly boy. But he's our big emotional guy. So he's
Yeah.
definitely taught us, yes, he's taught us so much. And, even just the story of us getting him, he was my first like puppy, actually. I've
Huh.
had, adult dogs in my past. And, I came into Jasmine's life actually when she was 5. But Sullivan was my first puppy. So I got to experience all of that.
All the
Um,
puppyhood.
all the puppyhood with him, and so that was great. And his personality is way more like outgoing and just kind of like a silly floppy boy sometimes.
He
And so
is a
it's
silly floppy boy.
he is, oh my gosh, so it's really cool just to see their differences in personalities, and how they react to things and how they interpret situations and how they choose to spend their time even. And so it's just been really cool, and I learned just so much from having two kind of different dogs, similar and different at the same time.
Yeah, yeah. Dim Very different interests, like you said, different
Yeah,
preferences in how they would choose to spend their time for sure,
absolutely.
which can
Yeah,
make some conflict within the home. I know that's,
yeah,
part of the history here. So I don't want to
absolutely.
assume what the story is. So why don't you tell me what you brought to
Yeah.
share with us today?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, when you brought your topic to me, one of the biggest lessons that I've really learned, and one of the biggest things that's impacted my training, my dogs, I am constantly learning from them. Like I was saying, I'm blessed to have such two different dogs to learn from. So when Sully was like around 8 months old, he, was going after kind of this spike of puberty, I would say. That's when they got into their first dog fight. And that was my first experience with dogs fighting within the home. I've
Okay.
been around dogs who are reactive, like leash reactive, people reactive, that kind of thing. But that was definitely our first experience with dogs fighting in the home. And so that became really hard. It definitely caused resource guarding to kind of start to become a big issue in the home. So those were also things that we had never really addressed before. And very quickly, we just kind of had to realize that this, I guess you could say, picture perfect, all of our dogs are going to get along and be together, and we're all going to cuddle on the couch together and watch movies, and we're going to have a house hippo too, like, all of the stuff that we see on the internet. We
Yeah.
just, it was
You had
our
to let
coming
that
to
go.
reality.
Hmm.
Absolutely. But for the betterment of all of us, truthfully, because that is what taught me that they are individuals,
Of
and
course.
our dogs are not put on this earth just for our sole purpose. They are here.
No.
They have their own personalities. And Sullivan was that personality that he wants his space. And so really going through all of that, which actually led me to also learn more about their medical history, and learning more about
Right.
our dog's health in general,
Yep.
which to me doesn't only include physical health, it includes mental health and emotional health as well. So
Absolutely.
starting,
Oh, I love that.
absolutely.
So good.
Right. And what's interesting though is I didn't learn that all at once. It came to me in
Hmm.
waves
Of
because,
course.
we just don't all of a sudden go bam to our final realization. It's small pieces, I think, that come to us in the beginning.
We're
So
always evolving. Like that's never going to
absolutely.
stop. And I don't want it
Hmm.
to. This is where
It shouldn't.
we can, I think, help the most people, is where our unique experiences in our lives and our individual education paths come together to
Right.
allow us to connect to the people out there that need us the most. The people that
Oh,
have
absolutely.
been in that moment or been in a similar situation that you
Yeah.
are just perfectly and particularly equipped to help that individual. So we
Absolutely.
we just never stop. We never stop growing and learning.
I know. I do, and I love that. And I mean that alone is like a big part of how I start to deal with clients now, and working with other people, is to know that, to be open, and to be open to learn from the dog in front of me. And yeah, pretty much I can sum it up with that. So I mean, that alone is a whole other side topic, right? So but yeah, I think that first it started off with physical. I physically was noticing signs of pain, and
Yeah.
realizing what kind of connection that had to how we are interacting with each person in our family. And that includes my
Mm,
dogs, that includes my children, that includes my wife, that included me,
yeah.
strangers, walking. And then all of a sudden, that then was like, well, of course, now I'm now learning about your emotional state and your mental state, and how are you? He had a double TP. I'm sorry, Sully had a double TPLO surgery.
Right.
Right at the age of 1. So
It's a big deal.
it was a huge deal, and it was a
Yeah.
huge recovering moment. And so even just kind of going through that, we realized that had a lot to do with, a lot of the behaviors we were seeing too, resource guarding in particular,
Yeah.
and how he was getting along with Jasmine, and
He's
how much he
cranky.
wanted to be
He's a
around. Yeah,
cranky dude.
thank you. He was just, it's really sad. He was just being cranky. And that's,
Yeah.
you know, so I think that moving forward, just being able to like notice these signs and notice what our dog is trying to tell you. Like, there were signs that were happening before the actual fight started. And
Hmm.
so I think, kind of understanding and just being more aware of what those signs are.
There's
Um,
that myth, right, of it happened
right.
out of nowhere.
I know, right? Absolutely.
As a trainer now, do you feel like that's something that you come across and see through a different lens?
I do. I definitely, seeing it through a different lens, I think, is a great way to put it, because I understand why it feels that way. I understand how hard it is to miss those cues. And I understand that the world that we live in doesn't always just naturally give you that information right when you take your puppy home. And a lot of the information that we see, like, on the internet, on TV shows, where our dogs are meant to comfort us, and they're meant to be
Mm,
fitting this box, where instead of actually looking at our dogs as individuals, and seeing them for what they're giving you, and being able to interpret that, like, I don't want all of my best friends to be exactly the same, and not all
yeah,
human friends, right? And I
completely.
don't I don't
Yeah.
expect all dogs to be the same now. And I feel like being able to communicate that with people has been a big part of what I'm doing now, is helping them learn who their dog is almost. It's like meeting your dog almost for the first time in a
Oh,
way, in a
that was
way.
beautiful.
I know, right? But and you don't even realize it, because it doesn't mean that we're bad people. Like we're
No,
looking
there's
for
a
love.
language barrier. How are you meant to understand,
Absolutely.
like to
That's beautiful
notice
too.
and
Yeah,
interpret something that you don't understand, that you don't even
exactly.
have the
Yeah,
framework to
absolutely.
understand? They're
Yeah,
nonverbal creatures. We are. So
absolutely.
that's a pretty fundamental disconnect.
Hmm.
And it takes conscious effort, either kind of fully on our part to understand what they're
Hmm.
saying at all times. That's hard. Fully
Mm,
on their
hmm.
part, meaning
Hmm.
teaching them, human and cues and expecting them to understand and bridge a lot of gaps, or we do
Right.
something in the middle where we teach them some of our language, we learn some of
Hmm.
theirs, and we can actually
Hmm.
understand each other.
Right. Right. Absolutely. So it really becomes such like a beautiful thing. Like when you have those moments where you just are hanging out with your dog and you don't say anything and they just do it. What they just look at you or they just sit or they just, they're just naturally in the moment with you. I think that's what I'm starting to realize is way more important than, putting my dog in a downstay and then leaving for no reason just to show that I can do it.
For what?
For what?
For
you
what?
know, I so yeah, I'm very thankful for, all of the situations that me and my wife have been through, no matter how hard they are and how much they forever change. Because that we are always evolving and we are always going through hard parts or hard situations ourselves as humans. And so that impacts everything, right? So I'm really thankful for everything that I've been through. I'm thankful for Sullivan's, emotional self. And I'm thankful for Jasmine's emotional self in her own way too. She has her own ness. She has her own Jasmine ness about her that I'm really, as she gets older, I almost appreciate like more, and I almost start to kind of understand her a little bit like more. She's not as like flashy. She definitely still wants that attention, but
Oh,
she
that's
kind of
really
just like
interesting.
sneaks in here.
Oh, it's super interesting that your journey primarily with Sullivan and working with
Yeah.
with Sully on specific behaviors and
Hmm.
training, because he
Yeah.
was really the center of the training.
And that's what we
Um,
thought, right? Yeah, that's why we
right.
came to it was,
But
yep,
it's the
was for
fact
that.
that brought you to a deeper understanding of your other dog, Jasmine. Like I love that
Absolutely.
that prompted you to get curious about, okay,
Yeah.
now that we know who you are, who are you? Like
Right.
who are you really, other
Right.
than just like our dog? Because there's so much more than that. This is something that I teach in my mentorship as a part of conducting intake, and how can we ask questions to get not just the information but
Right.
the information that's hidden within the information. And one of my favorite
Right.
questions to ask is, describe your dog in 3 words. And that
Mhm.
tells me so much about
Yeah.
how they feel about their dog. Is it,
Yeah.
that they're blocky and goofy and motivated, or are they
Yeah.
annoying? Are they
Yeah. Yeah.
frustrating? Are they persistent? Are they
Hmm.
needy? Are they clingy? Right? Like the adjectives that we use to
Yes.
describe our dogs, I think influences, well, tells a lot, and
I
can
agree.
then influence our approach with things. Like maybe
Yeah.
that is information gathering in a way, but I think it's also potentially an opportunity to do some reframes, do some mental shifts. It's like,
Absolutely.
is your dog needy and clingy,
Hmm.
or do they lack structure, confidence,
Right.
independence, right? Like, so I think that
Right.
there's also an opportunity there to, you know,
Right.
do a little bit of reframe.
Absolutely.
Is there any
Absolutely.
other like lessons or takeaways from this journey with Sully and Jasmine, which has really been like just a tremendous transformation, the power of
Right.
understanding your dogs, and that
Yeah.
being the hugest piece of it, right? Like the biggest part of
Yeah.
this was just understanding them. But is
Yep.
there anything else that you feel like impacts the way that you approach now working with other people's dogs?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the a lot of times I think it's a impacted the way that I start off the situation and the way that, like you said, like going through intake, like with your questions and seeing how the clients are, what adjectives that they're using. I think that's perfect. That's definitely something that I like to see off the bat. So I feel like going through what I have gone through with my dogs makes me pay attention more to how that how my clients now are interpreting their dogs, and what kind of behaviors are they kind of just wanting quick fixes for? Is it something that maybe the client themselves need to look inward for?
Yeah.
I think that there's a whole lot of personal, like human growth to be had when we're, doing dog training in general.
Big time.
And right.
Big time. So
And
much growth.
absolutely. So a lot of times I spend a lot of time watching the client now, and
Yeah.
starting off by seeing, how are they delivering treats to their dog? How are they holding the leash? How are they talking? And
Mm,
we kind of starting off with kind of like the basics of how am I perceiving my dog as an individual? Because I feel like that's my basis now. Like I just am so, I feel like more sensitive to that being important, to being able to move forward with a successful plan. I first need to start off with the basics of like, okay, well, does my dog trust me? Is what I'm doing and how I'm talking to them and the way that I'm viewing them, is that going to be, helpful for us to kickstart this journey together, and start working on the behavior modifications? Or, are we going to kind of be running into, are we going to potentially be butting heads in down the line? So yeah, I think that it's made me a little bit more sensitive and just aware of how are we then reacting to our dogs then ultimately. So if our dogs are doing something that we don't necessarily agree with, what are we doing? How are we reacting to them? And are we rushing over them and saying no, 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 and kind of impeding on their space and kind of adding to this, influx of energy and arousal that we have going? Or are we able to kind of observe the situation and actually regulate our emotions a little bit better in order
yeah.
to kind of communicate with our dogs in a way that's actually going to be helpful? And
Yeah.
so I feel like in the beginning, starting off with, a couple intake questions and paying attention to that in the beginning really helps me set up what approach I'm going to take and what's going to work for this particular dog.
Yeah.
So I
You
hope
know,
that makes sense. I know it's a
no,
hard like
it
topic to
absolutely
put
made
into
sense.
words.
And there was something, I mean,
So yeah.
it was all brilliant, but there was something particularly brilliant that I think you almost sped right on past, which is that there are key subtle things that we can be looking at in the human interaction with the dog that, in my mind, as you were saying it just now, I had this connection of, because they're nonverbal creatures and we are verbal, we have a tone. We can have an upbeat,
Right,
an angry
right,
tone, a frustrated
right.
tone, an excited to see you tone. Things like how we're holding the leash, things like how we're delivering our cues, things like how we're delivering our reinforcement. That's the tone.
That's
That's the
true.
tone of how we're communicating with our dog. Are we frustrated? Are we eager and excited? Are we just trying to get it done and bored, right? They're gonna hear that the same way that we would hear in our voice, like, hey Kayla, what's up? Versus like, hey
Right.
Kayla, what's up?
Absolutely.
And that's just,
Absolutely.
oh my gosh, so
Hmm.
brilliant. I love that.
That's a good point.
Well, you made it, not me.
I like the way that you kind of like summarized that. I think that you're very good at talking, Madison, and I just really like the way that you deliver information. So that sounded
Well,
really
thanks. Thanks, friend.
good.
Is there
Welcome.
anything else that you would like the amazing listeners out there to know about what you do, or anything that you're working on right now?
Well, right now I offer virtual classes. So if you're in the Denver area, and I can do hybrid, so a little bit of in person, a little bit of virtual. So you can actually go to tulsapackathletics.com and you can find packages there and request for me to be your personal one-on-one trainer there. So yeah, really, if I'm really very excited about doing hybrid. So I really want to get my feet wet into
It's such
that.
a
And I'm
great
I'm really,
program.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
so
I'm
great. And
excited
just
for
just to
that. I
tell
love
everybody out
it.
there, that's 3 weeks of daily virtual training, and then two
Yes.
1-hour in-person sessions with Kayla in your home. So if you are
Yes.
interested in connecting with her to talk about Jasmine and Sully, or to discuss
Yes.
potential virtual or hybrid packages, you can connect with Kayla on Instagram at Sunny Soul Dog Training. Thanks for joining us in the world of Dog Training Bites, where every challenge brings a lesson worth sinking our teeth into. See you next time. Dog Training Bites was created, produced, and edited by Mattison Simpson. You can connect with me on Instagram at Dog Training Bites, that's BYTES, and at Freed by Training. For information on today's guest and resources for help with your dog or dog training education, visit www.dogtrainingbytes.stream. Looking for more? Listen to my other show, Unpacked, a clinical dog training podcast co-hosted by Sailor Jerry the dog trainer and produced by Straight Up Dog Talk LLC.